News alerts flash across millions of screens. Supreme Court strikes down Trump-era tariffs. In boardrooms and on factory floors, Americans pause, realizing this is more than a legal ruling, it's an economic earthquake. For years, these tariffs reshaped global supply chains and divided industries. Now, they're gone. At the port of Los Angeles, cranes stand still as a ship captain wonders if his steel cargo will finally be free of punishing taxes. In Ohio, a family-run bicycle business breathes a sigh of relief, their survival no longer threatened by soaring steel costs. Across the Atlantic, diplomats scramble. The EU, locked in a trade dispute with the US, sees hope for an end to damaging retaliatory taxes. Canada and Mexico, our closest partners, greet the news with cautious optimism, envisioning smoother trade ahead. In Washington, reporters swarm the Supreme Court steps, recognizing the magnitude of this decision. This was the culmination of a bitter legal fight, questioning the limits of presidential power. The justices delivered a firm rebuke, reasserting Congress's role in trade, a power rooted in the Constitution. The ruling signals a potential end to a trade war that benefited no one. For American businesses and workers, it's a lifeline and a chance to compete again. For allies, it's a step toward repairing strained relationships. The air is thick with uncertainty, but also with possibility. This is American democracy in action. A check on executive power that will be studied for generations. To grasp today's ruling, we rewind to Section 232, a rarely used 1962 law letting presidents impose tariffs for national security. For decades, it gathered dust. That changed under Trump. In 2018, citing national security, the administration slapped steep tariffs on steel and aluminum, even from close allies. The goal: protect U.S. producers and revive American manufacturing. But critics argued the definition of national security was stretched too far. How could Canadian or German steel be a threat? Many saw the tariffs as blunt protectionism, warning they'd hurt businesses relying on metal from car makers to brewers. Trading partners hit back with retaliatory tariffs, blue jeans, motorcycles, soybeans, sparking a tit-for-tat trade war. The result: higher costs, uncertainty, and strained alliances. The tariffs were a core part of an America First agenda, but the fallout was global. Domestic steelmakers benefited, but countless other U.S. businesses suffered. The political and economic backlash was swift and severe. The world's trading system was thrown into chaos. Section 232, once obscure, became a flashpoint in the debate over presidential power and trade. The storm it unleashed would linger for years. Today, the Supreme Court calmed that storm. In a 6-3 decision, the justices ruled the Trump administration overstepped its authority with Section 232 tariffs. The court didn't strike down the law, but set a stricter test. Presidents must show a direct, tangible threat to national defense, not just broad economic concerns. No more blank checks for tariffs in the name of security. The ruling was a win for American manufacturers and importers who argued the tariffs were unconstitutional taxes imposed without Congress. Their long legal battle paid off, reaffirming that Congress, not the president, controls trade and taxation. The decision restores a crucial balance. Congress holds the power to regulate commerce, as the Constitution intended. Delegation to the president is not unlimited. Vague claims of national security can't justify sweeping economic actions. The ruling sends a clear message. Trade wars require congressional approval. It's a powerful reminder of the separation of powers at the heart of American government. The court's decision reasserts the legislative branch's authority over trade. Presidential power, even for national security, has limits. The era of unilateral tariff wars is over. At the heart of this case, who controls trade? Plaintiffs argued the Constitution is clear. Congress regulates commerce and levies taxes, not the president. Imposing tariffs without a congressional vote, they said, violated no taxation without representation. The government countered that Congress had delegated this power for national security emergencies. The court agreed that some delegation is necessary, but found the administration's definition of national security was so broad it erased limits on presidential authority. The justices warned unchecked power to declare any import a threat undermines the Constitution's checks and balances. The ruling wasn't about the merits of tariffs, but about who decides. Congress, not the president, must make these calls. The decision draws a clear line, protecting legislative authority over trade. With tariffs lifted, a new economic reality emerges. Immediate winners: U.S. businesses that use steel and aluminum, automakers, appliance makers, construction firms, see costs drop and competitiveness rise. Consumers benefit too, as prices for cars, appliances, and even beer stabilize or fall. Retaliatory tariffs abroad will likely end, reopening export markets for American farmers and manufacturers. International partners, Europe, Canada, Mexico, can now sell to the US without punitive taxes, easing global tensions. But not everyone wins. Domestic steel and aluminum producers lose their government shield and face renewed global competition. Some may struggle, but the broader economy gains from lower costs and restored trade. The end of the trade war brings relief to businesses and consumers alike. Exporters regain access to key markets. Damaged trade relationships begin to heal. The US reclaims its role as a reliable trading partner. The economic landscape is transformed overnight. This ruling does more than lower steel prices, it could reshape global trade. The Trump-era tariffs marked a sharp turn from decades of US-led free trade. Unilateralism and unpredictability rattled global supply chains and allies. The court's decision restores stability and signals the US will follow clear, rules-based processes. Major trade changes must now go through Congress, not just the White House. The lifting of tariffs and expected end of retaliatory measures could revive stalled international cooperation. The US and EU can now focus on shared challenges, like China's trade practices, instead of fighting each other. The free trade consensus isn't back, but the era of sudden tariff wars is over. The debate over protecting American workers continues but now shifts to Congress. The world sees a more predictable, law-abiding America. The path forward is collaborative, not combative. The conversation about smart, fair trade policy is just beginning. The impact goes beyond economics. It's about America's global leadership. For decades, the US built and defended the world's trading system, forging alliances and institutions. The Section 232 tariffs signaled a retreat, treating allies as adversaries and eroding trust. The Supreme Court's decision offers a chance to repair those relationships. US diplomats regain credibility, able to champion a rules-based order at home and abroad. The ruling shows American democracy's resilience, checks and balances still work. In an era of rising authoritarianism, this is a powerful example. The US can now refocus on global challenges, climate, security, fair trade, by working with allies, not against them. Ending the trade war strengthens coalitions and restores America's example. The world sees a stable, reliable partner once again. America's leadership is renewed by the power of its example. The Supreme Court's decision clarifies responsibility. Trade policy now rests with Congress. For years, lawmakers ceded authority to the White House. That era is over. Congress must now reform Section 232, clearly defining national security and setting limits on presidential action. Broader debates about trade, balancing free markets, protecting workers, confronting China, must happen in the open through legislation. The world has changed. Trade policy must adapt. Lawmakers face tough questions, but the court's ruling forces overdue action. A modern, bipartisan trade strategy is needed, one that supports workers, consumers, and alliances. The Supreme Court has done its job. Now Congress must do theirs. The future of American trade depends on it. The ball is in Congress's court. This story is about more than tariffs. It's about the strength of American democracy. The Supreme Court's decision affirms the rule of law and separation of powers. No branch, not even the executive, is above the law. The era of sudden, sweeping tariffs by decree is over. A more stable, predictable future is possible. Smart trade policy requires debate, consensus, and balance, not unilateral action. By returning power to Congress, the court restores a process that serves the nation, not just a few. America is strongest when it follows its founding principles: shared power, rule of law, and global partnership. The path forward is clear: solve challenges together through democracy for a more prosperous future.